This is what people think, but what are GMOs, really? When students and teachers around middle school were asked what they know about GMOs, these were their responses.
Genetically modified organisms.
I don't know what a GMO is. It's just a made-up thing that everyone should not believe in because it's actually not true. And GMO food tastes better. What I said.
That tomatoes are actually made out of fish. If it's a GMO.
And that GMOs are actually fine. So if you're scared of them, you should just I don't know.
GMO. Nada.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Genetically modified organisms, I think.
GMOs are genetically modified organisms.
Government monetary organization.
Genetically modified organisms?
Oh wait, I know this. Grotesque moles overpopulation.
We're here to tell you about GMOs and shed some light on what they really are and what they do. There is no proof that the process of genetically modifying plants or animals has any negative effects. The problem with GMOs is the way they are being used. There are so many GMOs that 80% of all food in any given grocery store is genetically modified. 90% of all soy on Earth is genetically modified, and 85% of corn is genetically modified. The actual process is simple. First, they insert a small amount of DNA of the desired trait into a weak virus. They then inject the virus right into the target cell, the cell that kills the virus, but the new DNA has already attached itself and changed the genetic makeup of the cell.
In a brief summary, what is genetics and how does it relate to GMOs?
So, genetics is the study of inheritance. Generally, inheritance is the following of genes from generation to generation, and usually like begets like, but not always, because there's a shuffling of the genes. And GMOs. So, if you put DNA into a plant, it's going to be stable, and it's going to be one of the genes, so it's going to be passed on from generation to generation.
Since their creation in 1975, GMOs have been used for many things. There have been many modifications to allow more yield, to allow plants to go in droughts, floods, monsoons, allow plants to be pest-resistant, weed-resistant, more nutritious, and other things. This is all very good, but there have also been some potential harmful modifications.
There have been concerns raised about GMOs. What is your response to these concerns?
Well, we have to step back. And so the idea of making a GMO plant started with a good idea, like to try to make plants better, either more nutritious or maybe carry their own pesticides so you don't have to spray the plant so much. So in principle, there's nothing wrong with GMOs. Also, I don't know if people are afraid when they hear about DNA, but we eat DNA all the time, right? When you eat a hamburger and lettuce, they're full of DNA. I think the problem was the very first GMOs were carrying pesticides. You've heard of BT cotton, right? What if the first GMOs were making medicine or making something nutritious? Do you think the public would be scared of them as they are about eating plants making pesticides? This company Monsanto took over, and that's part of the problem. They market it so highly as to make people annoyed with them. But in principle, the use of those plants has cut back on the uses of pesticides. It's just that Monsanto, what's the word? That their property rights, they wouldn't let the farmers save their seeds. It wasn't done in a generous way. So in Europe has been very anti-GMO, and I think that the issue, both there and here, is that people don't trust scientists, or more importantly, they don't trust the institutions that make the rules, like FDA and EPA. They don't trust those things. That's the big problem. And I don't know if I trust them either because they just keep flip-flopping. But maybe if more people knew exactly what's what, they could be more involved in these really important issues.
The company that produces the most GM food is Monsanto, an international trading company that produces GMOs, pesticides, and herbicides. They're very well known around the world because they make and own the most common herbicide in the world, Roundup. There's a huge amount of controversy around this because of just how effective Roundup is. It kills all of the plants. Well, all of the ones except for the ones Monsanto makes.
This creates a profit cycle for Monsanto. On top of this, when you make a GM plant and sell it to farmers, you run the risk of the seeds flying through the air and replanting themselves. This leads to the plants going into the local ecosystems. Because ecosystems are such complicated things, GMOs often disrupt them. The other thing that wild GMOs can do is mutate.
Once there's a wild, mutated GMO, there's zero predicting what it'll do. The problem is that the only way to be sure that plants don't spread is to make them sterile.
which is called the terminator gene and can be done. The problem with this solution, however, is that it makes the farmers have to buy new seeds each season. Monsanto has agreed not to use the terminator gene in response to farmers' outrage.
With the world's population growing as it is, do you think GMOs are going to be the food of the future, or is it something that's going to die out?
No, I think we're going to have to stick with it, given that, we're just too many people. Some of what scientists are trying to do is to make plants grow with less water. In order to do that, we have to use the GMO technology. It's kind of turning it around in terms of only making money versus saving the planet.
We hope this has been an educational documentary, but we want you to know that there is no right or wrong, and eating GMOs or not is your choice.